You're watching Press TV. It's time now for the news review section. Russia says that the U.S. president's latest remarks against Moscow show Washington's reluctance to abandon hopeless attempts to pressure the country with allegations of malign activities. The Russian Foreign Ministry welcomed Biden's remark that Washington does not seek escalation with Moscow. It, however, noted that the U.S. administration's words do not match its deeds. Moscow says that if the U.S. truly wants to build dialogue, it should abandon its confrontational rhetoric and take practical steps to improve bilateral ties. China has also reacted to Biden's speech to Congress on his geopolitical priorities. Beijing censured Washington for its anti-China sanctions and accused the U.S. of politicizing economy, technology, and violating principles of fair competition.
It's normal for China and the U.S. to compete in some areas, but this kind of competition should be a track and field race, not a duel to the death. The two sides should improve and surpass themselves while competing, instead of engaging in vicious competition and zero-sum game.
Wang Wenbin also warned the U.S. against imposing its democratic ideals on others, saying that this will intensify tensions and undermine stability. China's defense ministry also urged the U.S. to stop an upward trend in its military activities in the air and seas near China and restrain its forces that are threatening regional peace. In his congressional address, Biden said that the U.S. would stand up to China's unfair trade practices, accusing it of intellectual property theft and granting subsidies to state-owned enterprises. Now, on Russia, Biden said that Washington does not seek to escalate tensions with Moscow, but promised consequences for what he called Russia's electoral interference and cyber attacks. Well, a lot going on, as you see, between the U.S., China, the U.S., and Russia. Now, let's get some expert comment on this. I'm joined by a couple of guests. We'll have from Beijing, we have Einar Tangen, author and columnist. And also we have from Leesburg, Mike Billington, who is with the Asia Desk of the Executive Intelligence Review. Thank you for joining us on this news review, gentlemen. Let's go to Beijing. Einar, how do you see, with all that's been said regarding the way that President Biden, the U.S., is viewing relations with U.S. and China? I want you to focus on China, please. And what kind of a prospect would you depict, given Mr. Biden's recent comments?
Well, I don't think that China is surprised, but they're certainly it's more of the same. From Beijing's perspective, China, the U.S. lacks any kind of self-reflection, circumspection. At this point, it seems that China is used as a bugaboo to, in essence, say anything that's wrong with the U.S., from competition to internal matters, is somehow the fault of China. That does not bode well for any kind of future relationship, especially when the U.S. is involved in sensitive areas, including Taiwan, sailing ships up and down the straits, selling more arms, trying to recast what strategic ambiguity means, and in essence attack what Beijing sees as the cornerstone of their international relations, which is the One China principle.
Okay, now let me turn to Leesburg. Mike, could you tell us about what you think the process will look like for, first of all, for U.S.-Russia relationship? You know, a host of issues going on. We have this Navalny thing. We have NATO, eastward expansion. The Russian buildup along the Ukraine borders, and you name it.
Well, first of all, people have to acknowledge that Biden is not running policy in the U.S. any more than Donald Trump did. We're looking at a takeover of policy in the U.S. and most of Europe by both the financial interests, who have imposed this insane Green New Deal, basically saying that the banks are henceforth taking over the government's policies on the economy and cutting credit to industry, to agriculture, imposing a global genocide on countries like Syria and Yemen and much of Africa. And on the strategic side, the military-industrial complex in the U.S. has gone pretty much overboard. People